AIDA, the Artificial Intelligence and Data Act, was introduced in 2022, but I only found out about it earlier this year when I signed a petition circulated by the Canadian Civil Liberties Association to convince the government to regulate artificial intelligence in a way that puts human rights first and spells out all of the problems with AIDA as it was written. I also discovered recently that AIDA and the rest of the Digital Charter Implementation Act was terminated in January of this year when Canadian Parliament was prorogued. The Artificial Intelligence and Data Act, or AIDA, was included in Bill C-27, or the Digital Charter Implementation Act, in 2022 by Philippe-François Champagne, who was Minister of Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada at the time, and who is now Minister of Finance. According to the summary offered by the website for Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada, AIDA was meant to address two types of adverse impacts associated with high-impact AI systems. First, a range of harms to individuals. Second, it is the first legal framework in Canada to address the adverse impacts due to systemic bias in AI systems in a commercial context. However, as stated by the Montreal AI Ethics Institute, the AIDA was embroiled in controversy throughout its life in Parliament. A chorus of individuals and organizations voiced concerns with the AIDA, citing its exclusionary public consultation process, its vague scope and requirements, and its lack of independent regulatory oversight as reasons why the legislation should not become law. Though the government ultimately proposed some amendments to the AIDA in response to criticisms, the amendments did not sufficiently address the fundamental flaws in the AIDA's drafting and development. As a result, the AIDA languished and died in a parliamentary committee, unable to secure the confidence and political will needed to proceed through the legislative process. The Canadian Civil Liberties Association has written quite a few blog posts about AIDA and even created and circulated a petition for the general public to pressure the government to regulate AI in such a way that puts human rights first, and points out all of the problems with AIDA. Chiefly, and in summary, in its current form, AIDA puts economic development first, giving private sector interests priority over fundamental human rights. AIDA doesn't apply to police and national security agencies, even though these agencies rely on worrisome AI tools that can be used for mass surveillance. And AIDA also puts the oversight of AI into the hands of the same minister, Champagne, responsible for promoting AI innovation, which raises questions about whose interests AIDA is actually serving. The Artificial Intelligence and Data Act, along with the rest of the Digital Charter Implementation Act, may be dead in the proverbial water. However, there are still risks and dangers of AI being abused or running amok if it isn't effectively regulated, which means law and policymakers have to thoroughly study AI, the cons as well as the pros, before they can make any laws regarding it. Any future laws regarding AI need to address issues of human rights as well as security and business concerns, and law and policymakers need to consult with experts from civil society and the general public so they can see all of the problems in all areas and thus mitigate them. As for members of the general public, we as a society can stand to be more responsible about how we use artificial intelligence. For instance, in terms of creativity and communication, we can stand to avoid using AI as a crutch and do some actual work. That'll stop us from letting AI let us become lazy. And for those of you who use AI to steal other people's hard work, especially in the creative realm, please just stop. If you want to be an artist of any kind or to communicate with people, do the work necessary. In conclusion, artificial intelligence, like so much else, is a double-edged sword. Used responsibly, it can be a boon, but if used irresponsibly, there's no telling how much damage it can do.